The next morning in Charlotte was quiet, in the way only early holidays are. Too quiet. The house was still asleep, the kind of silence that feels heavier after something loud and ugly has happened the night before. I woke before everyone else and made coffee in the kitchen, using the same chipped mug I'd brought with me every year. Outside the window, the neighborhood looked perfect. Manicured lawns, parked luxury SUVs, everything polished and put together, just like the image my family worked so hard to project. I had never quite fit into that picture. At family gatherings, my role was always the same. I arrived alone. I dressed simply. I asked polite questions about other people's lives and never talked much about my own. When someone eventually asked what I did for work, I gave the shortest answer possible. I consult, I'd say. That single word had followed me for years, vague enough to invite assumptions and boring enough to end the conversation. Kendra usually nodded with thinly veiled disinterest before redirecting the topic to real estate prices, private schools, or which restaurant had just opened that no one should be seen at twice. To them, consulting meant struggling. It meant unstable income, no ambition, no status. It meant I had somehow missed the instructions everyone else received on how to live properly. Lila absorbed those conclusions early. I remembered her at 10 years old, wrinkling her nose when I handed her a birthday gift wrapped in plain paper. At 15, she once asked why I didn't just get a better job if money was so tight. At 19, she stopped pretending to ask at all. The judgment was silent, but it was always there. I had been invited to Thanksgiving not because I was needed, but because excluding me would look bad. That was the unspoken truth. Later that morning, I overheard Kendra talking on the phone in the hallway. "It's just sad," she whispered, not quietly enough. I mean, at her age, still driving that car, still renting clothes from the wrong stores? I worry about what example that sets. I didn't interrupt. I never did. From the outside, my life looked small. No husband, no children, no flashy milestones to post online, just a quiet routine and a tendency to disappear early from parties. But there were details no one ever asked about. They never asked why I was constantly flying in and out of Charlotte on weekdays, or why my phone rang at odd hours with numbers I always stepped outside to answer, or why I never seemed worried when money came up, even as they speculated about my lack of it. They never noticed that I listened more than I spoke, or that I remembered everything. By the time the family began to wake up and the house filled again with noise, I had already packed my bag. I left a note on the counter thanking them for dinner and wishing everyone a safe holiday. As I drove away, my phone buzzed again. Another notification, another clip, another stranger laughing. They were all so confident they understood who I was. What none of them realized was that the version of me they had dismissed for years was carefully constructed. And once you choose to let people believe a lie about you, you also choose the moment when the truth will finally matter. That moment was closer than they thought. The truth is, the distance between me and my family didn't begin with a viral video. It started years earlier, the moment my brother Daniel brought Kendra home for the first time. I remember that dinner clearly. She arrived late, wearing heels she couldn't walk in, and a smile that never quite reached her eyes. She scanned my apartment before she even said hello, taking inventory of the furniture, the books, the view from the window. By the end of the night, she knew exactly where she ranked everyone in the room. Daniel was in love. Blindly so. I could see it in the way he laughed too loudly at her jokes and agreed with everything she said. When she spoke about success, image, and being seen, he nodded like those were truths He had simply forgotten until she reminded him. After they married, family gatherings changed. Conversations became competitions. Vacations turned into performances. Every achievement had to be visible. Every purchase had to be justified by its price tag. If something couldn't be shown, it didn't count. I learned quickly where I stood. Kendra never insulted me outright. She didn't need to. Her disappointment was subtle, delivered through concerned looks and well-meaning advice. "You know, Eleanor," she once said over brunch, "it's never too late to reinvent yourself." Daniel didn't stop her. He rarely did. When Lila was born, I watched the cycle begin again. She was surrounded by labels before she could walk. Designer blankets, curated photos, a future carefully shaped around appearances. I loved her anyway. When she was small, she liked sitting beside me on the floor, flipping through books and asking questions that had nothing to do with money. Back then, she was curious, not calculating, kind, not clever. But children learn what they are shown. As Lila grew, she learned which people mattered and which ones were background noise. She learned that attention was currency, that laughter could be earned by pointing it at someone else. The night I made my decision came quietly. Lila was 6. It was her birthday party, loud and expensive. I stood near the back, watching as Kendra accepted compliments for a celebration she had clearly planned to impress other adults, not her child. At one point, I overheard Kendra say, "Of course she'll go far. We're investing properly in her future." That word stayed with me, investing. I realized then that no one in that room was thinking about who Lila would become, only what she would represent. That night, I went home and made a choice I never told anyone about. I decided that if I was going to help my niece, it would be quietly, on my terms, and with rules that money alone could never replace. I didn't tell Daniel, I didn't tell Kendra, I didn't even tell Lila. I contacted an attorney the following week and asked how to create something that would reward character, not image. Something that couldn't be bullied, guilted, or manipulated. The structure took months. The paperwork took longer. By the time it was done, I had built a system designed to wait, to observe, to reveal truth when the timing was right. And then I stepped back into my role as the invisible aunt, the one they never worried about, the one they never thanked. They had no idea a decision made in silence years ago would one day stand at the center of everything they believed was secure. And neither did Lila. Not yet. The trust was never meant to be a gift. It was meant to be a mirror. I established it quietly in Charlotte through a private legal structure that carried my family name but not my identity. On paper, it looked like a conventional educational trust. Conservative investments, long horizon, no extravagance, nothing that would draw attention. The intention was simple: give time room to work. Each year, I added to it methodically. Not in dramatic sums, but consistently. The kind of consistency that compounds not just money, but intention. I wanted the fund to grow alongside Lila, to mature as she did, to be there when she reached an age where choices mattered more than potential. No one in my family ever asked where the scholarships came from, or how certain doors always seemed to open at just the right moment. They were comfortable believing that everything they had was self-made, earned through taste and effort. I let them. The most important part of the trust was not the amount. It was the clause. I asked the attorney to write it in plain language. No loopholes, no ambiguity, no room for interpretation shaped by emotion. The beneficiary must demonstrate consistent behavior, reflecting integrity, kindness, and respect for others. Public conduct materially inconsistent with these values would trigger a review. The trustee would have sole discretion to act. It was not a punishment clause. It was a values clause. Money without character does not build security. It amplifies whatever is already there. The trustee I chose was a man named Raymond Clark. He was not family. He was not impressed by status. He believed rules mattered because people mattered. He had built his career protecting foundations from being hollowed out by entitlement. When I explained what I wanted, he listened without interruption. "You understand this may never be released as intended," he said. "I do," I replied. "And you are prepared for that?" "Yes." The secondary beneficiary was listed without fanfare, a regional scholarship program for first-generation college students in North Carolina, young people who had never been taught how to perform success, only how to earn it. I hoped I would never need that line. Years passed. Lila grew older, smarter, sharper, more aware of cameras and audiences. The kindness I remembered from her childhood thinned and hardened into performance. Compliments became currency. Cruelty became humor. From a distance, I watched. I watched her learn which angles made her look powerful. I watched her learn how to speak with confidence without substance. I watched the way she spoke about people who could not elevate her. Still, I said nothing. The trust continued to grow. Quietly, patiently. By the time Lila turned 18, the fund had crossed 7 figures. Raymond notified me of the milestone, not with excitement, but with caution. "We are approaching the evaluation window," he said. I knew. Her 21st birthday would trigger the final review. Not a single moment, not one mistake, but a pattern, a record, a body of behavior. I told myself that people could still change. That maturity sometimes arrived late. That the version of Lila the internet saw might not be the one she truly was. But doubt has a way of settling when ignored. As the release date approached, something in me shifted from hope to watchfulness. Not fear, awareness. Because once money is given, it cannot teach. It can only confirm. And confirmation was coming faster than anyone realized. The first video might have been dismissed as cruelty disguised as humor. The second one erased any doubt. By Sunday afternoon, Lila was no longer pretending the moment had slipped out accidentally. She leaned into it. She stitched reactions. She replied to comments with smirks and emojis. She framed the story the way influencers do when they sense momentum. "This is just how my family jokes," she said in one clip, shrugging. "If you can't laugh, that's on you." The comments rewarded her honesty. Or what passed for it. Drag her. She deserves it. Not everyone can keep up. She liked those the most. By Monday morning, the narrative had solidified. I wasn't a person. I was a character. The poor ant. The cautionary tale. The punchline that made her look sharper by comparison. I didn't respond. Silence, after all, is invisible online. And invisibility has its uses. Raymond Clark called me that afternoon. "I assume you've seen the additional posts," he said. "Yes." There was a pause on the line, the kind that signals a shift from observation to action. "This is no longer a single incident," he continued. "It's a pattern. Public, deliberate, monetized." I pictured him at his desk, glasses low on his nose, the trust documents open beside a tablet streaming the latest clip. He was not a man who reacted quickly, but he was a man who recognized thresholds. "She's scheduled brand meetings now," he added. "She's using the attention to negotiate sponsorships." I closed my eyes. "That suggests intent," I said. "Yes." We didn't need to restate the clause. It hung between us like a line already crossed. Raymond was careful. He always was. "My role is not to judge her," he said. only to assess whether her conduct aligns with the standards required to receive these assets. And your assessment, I asked, is that it does not. Outside my window, Charlotte traffic moved steadily, indifferent to the moment unfolding in that quiet call. People went about their lives while something irreversible took shape. What happens next? I asked. If you authorize a formal review, the trust will be frozen immediately, Raymond said, pending final determination. And the outcome? If confirmed, the assets will be redirected according to the secondary designation. I knew what that meant. I had written it myself. But knowing something intellectually is different from hearing it aloud. I want to be clear, Raymond added. Once this is done, there is no reversal. Not for apologies, not for deletions. I thought about the 6-year-old girl on the floor with picture books, the teenager asking why some people mattered more than others, the young woman now staring into a camera, convinced she was untouchable because attention told her so. Proceed, I said. The trust froze that evening. Lila kept posting. She didn't notice the quiet line item in a system she had never bothered to understand. She didn't feel the shift because entitlement insulates until it collapses. 2 days later, she posted a countdown video. 14 days until I turn 21, she smiled. Life is about to get very real. The comments flooded in with champagne emojis and dollar signs. I watched that one once. Not because I was uncertain, but because I understood something she didn't. When people mistake silence for weakness, they stop watching for consequences. And the most dangerous consequences are always the ones you don't see coming. Lila's 21st birthday arrived wrapped in glass and lights. The venue overlooked downtown Charlotte, all clean lines and open air. The kind of place designed to look expensive from every angle on camera. White drapes fluttered against the skyline. A DJ played music, just loud enough to feel important. Every surface reflected something shiny. Ice buckets, champagne flutes, phones held high. The banner behind the entrance read, "Finally 21." Her face was printed twice as tall as she was. I arrived alone, exactly on time, wearing a simple navy dress and flat shoes. Nothing new, nothing memorable. Several people glanced at me, then away, as if their eyes had slipped over something unimportant. That was fine. Lila didn't notice me at first. She was too busy greeting guests, hugging influencers she barely knew, thanking people for stories and tags and exposure. She moved like someone who believed this night was a beginning, not an ending. Her mother hovered nearby, radiant and restless, soaking in reflected attention. She made it, Kendra said to someone I didn't recognize. All her hard work is finally paying off. I stood near the edge of the crowd, close enough to hear, far enough to be ignored. Halfway through the evening, Lila climbed onto the small stage with a microphone in one hand and her phone in the other. The DJ lowered the music. "I just want to say thank you," she said, beaming. "This is literally the best night of my life. I'm officially 21, which means I finally get access to my trust fund." Cheers erupted, glasses clinked. Someone shouted her name. "I don't even know who set it up," she laughed. "But I promise I'll make terrible financial decisions in their honor." More laughter, more phones raised. That was when Raymond Clark stepped forward. He hadn't been announced. He didn't need to be. He wore a dark suit and carried a slim leather folder. His presence cut through the noise without effort. Lila frowned slightly, confused, then smiled again. "Oh my God," she said. "Is this happening right now?" Kendra clasped her hands together. "This is the administrator," she announced proudly. "He's here to make it official." Raymond took the microphone. "Miss Lila Bennett," he said calmly. "I am the trustee of the Educational Trust established on your behalf at birth." The room quieted. Anticipation thickened the air. The trust reached a value of $1.9 million earlier this year. A collective gasp. Lila's mouth fell open. Tears sprang to her eyes. But, Raymond continued, and the word landed heavy. Pursuant to the governing agreement, the trust underwent a character review prior to disbursement. The silence was immediate. Based on documented public conduct occurring over the past week, the trust has been found in material violation of its core conditions. Lila laughed once, sharply. What does that mean? It means, Raymond said evenly, that the trust has been dissolved. Kendra stepped forward. That's not possible. Raymond did not look at her. The funds have been redirected to the secondary beneficiary, he continued. A scholarship program for first-generation college students in this state. Lila's phone slipped from her hand and hit the floor. No, she whispered. No, no, no. That's not real. This is a joke. Raymond turned his head then. He looked directly at me. The trust was fully funded by your Aunt Eleanor, he said, since the day you were born. Every eye in the room swung toward me. Kendra stared as if I had spoken a foreign language. That doesn't make sense, she said. She doesn't have that kind of money. Raymond closed the folder. She does, he said, and she always has. Lila stumbled off the stage toward me, mascara already smearing. Aunt Eleanor, please, she cried. I didn't know. I was just making content. I'll fix it. I swear. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I spoke, quietly enough that only she could hear. You didn't lose the money tonight, I said. You showed why you were never meant to have it. Behind us, the party had stopped entirely. No music, no laughter, just the sound of a truth finally spoken aloud. And once spoken, it could not be taken back. The party did not end so much as it collapsed. No one announced it. People simply stopped pretending. Conversations fell apart mid-sentence. Phones, which had been raised for celebration minutes earlier, were now recording something else entirely. Shock. Disbelief. The precise moment a narrative shattered. By the time I stepped into the elevator to leave, at least a dozen videos were already uploading. They spread faster than Lila's original post ever had. Clips titled, She Lost Everything in One Sentence, The Rich Aunt Plot Twist. Worst birthday reveal ever. The internet, so eager to laugh a week earlier, recalibrated instantly. Lila's face became a meme. The same expressions frozen and replayed, her voice breaking, her hands shaking. The moment she realized attention had a cost. She deleted the first video that night. By morning, all of her accounts were gone. Kendra tried to stop the damage. She called Raymond. She called me. She left messages that shifted tone with each attempt. Confused, angry, desperate. You can't destroy her future over a misunderstanding, she said in one voicemail. But it was not a misunderstanding. It was a record. 2 days later, Daniel asked to meet me. We sat in a quiet cafe not far from where we used to study as kids. He looked older than I remembered. Smaller. I didn't know, he said immediately. About the money, about the trust. I nodded. But you knew how they treated me. He didn't answer. Then I told him the second truth, the one no one was prepared for. The trust was only one part of what I had done. The prep school tuition Lila attended, covered by a grant I created under a different name. The summer programs. The apartment she moved into at 19. The car she drove to campus. All quietly funded. All conditional. All invisible. Daniel stared at his hands. She thought it was us, he said. I know, I replied. That was the problem. The scholarship fund received the transfer within a week. Raymond sent me the confirmation without commentary. 14 students were selected for the first round. Young people with transcripts marked by effort, not entitlement. Lila retreated from public life entirely. No statements, no apologies, just absence. In some ways, that absence spoke louder than anything she could have posted. A month later, I left Charlotte. Not out of bitterness, out of clarity. I took a short-term lease in a quieter city where no one knew my name or my history, where I could walk unnoticed and unjudged, the way I always had. One evening, as I sat on a balcony watching the lights come on below, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. It was from one of the scholarship recipients. She wrote that she had been accepted to a program she never thought possible. That she didn't know who had made it happen, only that she intended to make it matter. I closed my eyes and breathed. Lila had believed her story was about exposure. She was wrong. It was about investment. And who deserves it? The cruel irony was this. She had been standing on a foundation built quietly for her benefit. And she never once thought to ask who laid the ground beneath her feet. By the time she realized, it was already supporting someone else. I am sitting in my living room now, far from Charlotte, wrapped in a soft sweater that cost less than a dinner entree at the party Lila once believed defined her worth. The room is quiet. No cameras, no audience. Just space to think. People often assume that power announces itself, that wealth demands visibility, that success needs witnesses to exist. I once believed that too, before life taught me otherwise. What happened to Lila was not revenge. It was not humiliation. It was alignment. The moment when values met consequences without apology. I never wanted to hurt her. I wanted her to understand something deeper than money. That character is not something you perform when it benefits you. It is something you live when no one is watching. The funds now support students who have never mocked anyone for attention. Students who understand that dignity is not a brand. Their futures are unfolding quietly, without hashtags, and that feels right. As for my family, time will decide what heals and what does not. Some silences are protective. Some are final. I no longer feel obligated to explain which is which. I still live simply. I still drive an unremarkable car. I still wear clothes that feel like myself. None of that changed. What changed was the illusion. The illusion that loud people are powerful. The illusion that kindness is weakness. The illusion that money belongs to those who demand it most. Here are the 5 lessons this story taught me, and I hope they stay with you too. First, never underestimate people who live quietly. Silence is often a choice, not a limitation. Second, character matters more than image. What you do when you think no one important is watching is who you truly are. Third, money does not create values, it amplifies them. Fourth, respect is worth more than attention. Clout fades, integrity compounds. Fifth, the ground you stand on may have been built by someone you dismissed. If this story made you pause, take a moment with it. What lesson did you take from this journey? And what city are you watching from right now? Like, share, and comment to join the conversation.